Zora Williams stood at the back of the grand ballroom, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched her small purse. The hotel was one of Atlanta's finest, with crystal chandeliers hanging from high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the city's skyline. Around her, well-dressed guests chatted happily, unaware of the storm about to break. At 19, Zora looked older than her years. She wore a simple navy blue dress she had bought just yesterday, and her braided hair was pulled back neatly. Her eyes, however, showed the strain of sleepless nights and a 5-hour drive from her college town to this wedding she wasn't invited to attend. Her father, Marcus Williams, stood at the front of the room. Tall and handsome in his tuxedo, he smiled and joked with his groomsmen. Zora hadn't seen him in person for nearly 3 years, not since he left her mother for Vanessa, the woman who would soon walk down the aisle to become his new wife. "Are you with the bride or groom?" a smiling usher asked, approaching Zora. "The groom," she said quietly. "He's my father." The usher looked confused. "I don't remember seeing your name on the guest list." "There was a mix-up," Zora replied, her heart beating faster. "Please, I just need to talk to my dad before the ceremony." But it was too late. Music began to play, and the wedding party started their procession. Guests moved to their seats. Zora slipped further back, finding a spot behind a large flower display where she could watch without being seen. Her phone vibrated in her purse. A text from her mother. "Are you sure about this? Maybe there's another way." Zora didn't reply. There was no other way. She had tried calling her father multiple times over the past 2 weeks, but he had either ignored her calls or cut their conversations short when she tried to bring up Vanessa. "She's just jealous," he had told her Aunt Denise, who had relayed the conversation to Zora. "She needs to accept that I've moved on." But this wasn't about jealousy. This was about the folder in Zora's purse, the one filled with newspaper clippings, printouts from county courthouse records, and photographs that told a very different story about the beautiful woman now preparing to walk down the aisle. The music changed. Everyone stood. Zora's breath caught as she got her first glimpse of Vanessa in her wedding gown. She was stunning, tall and graceful, with flawless brown skin and a dazzling smile. Her dress probably cost more than a year of Zora's college tuition. For a moment, doubt crept in. Could she really be wrong about this woman? The evidence said no, but standing here now, watching her father's face light up with love as he saw his bride, Zora felt a wave of uncertainty. A heavy hand fell on her shoulder. She turned to find one of the venue's security guards looking down at her. "Miss, do you have an invitation?" he asked firmly. Zora swallowed hard. "No, but I need to be here. That's my father getting married. If you're not on the guest list, I'll have to ask you to leave." Guests nearby were starting to look their way. Vanessa had reached the halfway point of the aisle. In moments, she would stand beside Zora's father, and they would exchange vows. It was now or never. "Please," Zora said to the security guard, "give me 5 minutes. What's about to happen is illegal, and I can prove it." 2 weeks before the wedding, Zora sat cross-legged on her mother's living room floor. Cardboard boxes surrounded her, filled with old papers and forgotten memories. Her mother, Diana, was finally cleaning out the garage, and Zora had come home from college to help. "I don't know why I kept all this junk," Diana sighed, sorting through a box of old bills. Zora didn't mind the work. Being busy kept her from thinking about her father's upcoming wedding, which she had learned about through her cousin's social media post. No invitation had arrived for her or her mother. As she opened another dusty box, a folder slipped out. Inside were newspaper clippings her mother had collected during the divorce. Most were about local events or Diana's community work, but one yellowed article caught Zora's eye. It featured a small picture of a woman who looked strangely familiar. "Mom," Zora called, holding up the clipping. "Who is this?" Diana squinted at the paper. "Some fraud case I followed years ago." "Why?" Zora stared at the image. The woman's hair was different, and the picture was grainy, but the eyes and smile were unmistakable. "This looks like Vanessa." "Your father's Vanessa? Let me see that." Diana grabbed the paper, studying it closely. "The name here says Vanessa Chambers, not Preston." A cold feeling settled in Zora's stomach. What was the fraud case about? Something about scamming an older man out of his savings. I don't remember the details. That night, instead of studying for her biology exam, Zora searched online for information about Vanessa Chambers. At first, she found nothing. Then she tried different combinations of names and fraud. At 2 a.m., she hit the jackpot. A news article from a small paper in Tennessee mentioned a Vanessa Chambers Johnson wanted for questioning about identity theft and fraud. The attached photo was clearer than the newspaper clipping. It was definitely her father's fiancée, just with darker hair and heavier makeup. More searches revealed the pattern. Vanessa Chambers, sometimes using the last names Johnson, Baker, or Lee, had a history of marrying wealthy men and disappearing with large sums of money. There were outstanding warrants for her arrest in Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. The next morning, Zora drove to the county courthouse. The clerk was reluctant to help at first, but when Zora explained that her father might be in danger, the older woman softened. "I can't give you copies without proper authorization," she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "But I can tell you that Vanessa Chambers has a record here, and there's no official name change to Preston on file." Over the next 3 days, Zora built her case. She found marriage records showing Vanessa was still legally married to a man in California. She uncovered police reports from women claiming Vanessa had stolen their identities. Most damning was a recent warrant issued for her arrest in Florida for grand theft. Each night, Zora called her father. Each night, he either didn't answer or cut the conversation short when she mentioned Vanessa. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something important," she said during their last call. "If this is about Vanessa again, I don't want to hear it," he snapped. "You and your mother need to move on, I have." "But Dad." "No, Zora, I'm happy now. Why can't you accept that?" The call ended with Zora in tears. She tried reaching her father's sister next. "Aunt Denise, I think Dad's in real trouble," she explained, sending the evidence she gathered. Aunt Denise was concerned but cautious. "Zora, honey, even if you're right, crashing the wedding might not be the best approach. Your father is a proud man." But as the wedding day approached, Zora knew she couldn't just stand by. Her father was about to marry a criminal, a woman who would likely disappear with his savings as soon as the honeymoon ended. Someone had to stop it, and that someone would have to be her. The day before the wedding, Zora paced her small motel room on the outskirts of Atlanta. Her last attempt to reach her father had ended in disaster. She had driven to his office building during lunch hour, hoping to catch him alone. Marcus Williams had been surprised to see his daughter waiting beside his car in the parking garage. For a moment, his face softened. "Zora, what are you doing here?" "Dad, we need to talk." She clutched her folder of evidence tightly. "It's about Vanessa." His expression immediately hardened. "I thought I made myself clear on the phone." "Please, just look at what I found." Zora opened the folder, hands shaking. "She's not who you think she is." Marcus glanced at the papers, then closed the folder firmly. "Enough. Your mother put you up to this, didn't she?" "No, Dad. Mom doesn't even know I'm here." Zora tried to keep her voice steady. "Vanessa is still married to someone else. She's wanted in 3 states for fraud." "This is ridiculous." Marcus checked his watch. "I have a meeting to get back to." "Dad, please." "No." His voice was sharp now. "I know the divorce was hard on you, but this," he gestured at the folder, "this is too far. Vanessa makes me happy. Why can't you accept that?" Tears burned in Zora's eyes. "Because she's lying to you. The only person creating problems here is you." Marcus stepped around her to unlock his car. "Go home, Zora, and don't come to the wedding tomorrow. You're not welcome." Now, alone in her motel room, those last words echoed in Zora's mind. Not welcome. Her own father had shut her out completely. Her phone rang. It was Aunt Denise. "Did you talk to him?" her aunt asked. He wouldn't listen. Zora's voice cracked. "He told me not to come tomorrow." Aunt Denise sighed heavily. "I was afraid of that. Marcus can be stubborn, but I've been thinking about what you showed me. And I believe you. Something hasn't felt right about Vanessa from the beginning. The way she isolated your father from the family, how secretive she is about her past." Zora sat on the edge of the bed. "What should I do?" "I don't know, honey. Crashing the wedding would create a scene. But letting this woman take advantage of your father." Her voice trailed off. After ending the call, Zora spread her evidence across the motel bed. The marriage certificate showing Vanessa was still married to a man named Robert Chen in California. The newspaper articles about identity theft, the police reports, the warning from a private investigator's website about Vanessa Chambers and her aliases. Zora had done everything right. She'd gathered evidence. She tried to talk to her father privately. She'd reached out to family for support. Nothing had worked. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Did you talk to your dad? How did it go?" Zora didn't answer. Instead, she opened her laptop and looked at the wedding details she'd found online. The ceremony was at 2 p.m. at the Grand Peachtree Hotel. Security would be tight. Marcus's company was well known, and several important business partners would attend. Getting in wouldn't be easy. Making her father listen would be even harder. Zora pulled up a map of the hotel and studied the layout. There were multiple entrances, including service doors for catering staff. If she couldn't get in through the front, maybe there was another way. She looked again at the evidence spread across her bed. This wasn't just about her feelings or the pain of her parents' divorce. This was about protecting her father from a dangerous woman who had hurt people before. Tomorrow, one way or another, she would make him see the truth, even if it meant losing him forever. Zora packed the folder carefully and set her alarm. She would need to arrive early, before the security became too tight, before her father made the biggest mistake of his life. The Grand Peachtree Hotel buzzed with activity as staff made final preparations for the Williams-Preston wedding. White roses and gold ribbons decorated every surface. A string quartet warmed up in the corner of the ballroom. Everything was perfect, just as Vanessa had demanded. Zora slipped through a side entrance, wearing the navy blue dress she had bought for the occasion. Her folder of evidence was hidden in a small matching purse. She had arrived early, hoping to blend in with the hotel guests, but her heart raced with every step. A security guard had already stopped her once, but she pretended to be a hotel guest heading to the restaurant. From her hiding spot behind a large potted plant, Zora watched guests begin to arrive. Most were strangers, business associates of her father or friends of Vanessa she had never met. Then she spotted her Aunt Denise entering with her husband. Zora quickly texted her, "I'm here, near the back. Dad wouldn't listen yesterday." Aunt Denise checked her phone, eyes widening as she scanned the room. When she spotted Zora, she gave a small nod but didn't approach. Instead, she sent a text back. "Be careful. Security is checking invitations at the door." The ballroom filled quickly. Zora moved from her hiding spot to stand against the back wall, trying to look like she belonged. Her father was at the front now, talking with the minister, looking nervous but happy. The music changed. Everyone began taking their seats. This was her last chance to stop this before it began. Zora took a deep breath and started walking toward her father. She had made it halfway down the side aisle when a hand grabbed her arm. "Excuse me, miss. Can I see your invitation?" It was a security guard, tall and serious in a black suit. I left it at my seat," Zora stammered. "Which seat is that?" The guard's eyes narrowed. Before Zora could answer, the wedding march began to play. Everyone stood and turned toward the back doors, which opened to reveal Vanessa in her wedding gown. She was stunning, her smile radiant as she prepared to walk down the aisle alone. She had told everyone her parents were dead. Another lie Zora had uncovered. The security guard was still holding Zora's arm, waiting for an answer. "That's my father," Zora said, pointing toward Marcus. "Please, I need to talk to him. It's important." "If you're not on the guest list, you need to leave." The guard began pulling her toward the exit. Panic rose in Zora's chest. This was her only chance. "Wait," she said, louder than intended. Heads turned. Her father's eyes found hers across the room, widening in surprise, then darkening with anger. Vanessa had reached the halfway point of the aisle. She paused, following Marcus's gaze to Zora, and for a brief moment, her perfect smile faltered. "Dad," Zora called out, pulling free from the security guard. "You have to listen to me." The music stopped abruptly. Whispers spread through the crowd. Marcus stepped down from the altar, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Zora, I told you not to come. Please don't do this." Zora opened her purse, pulling out the folder. "I'm sorry, Dad, but I can't let you marry her." She turned toward the guests. "Vanessa Preston isn't who she says she is." Vanessa's face hardened. "Marcus, Who is this girl? Why is she disrupting our wedding? This is my daughter, Marcus said tightly. She was just leaving. Two security guards approached, ready to remove Zora, but Aunt Denise stood up. Wait, she said loudly. I think we should hear what Zora has to say. The room fell silent. All eyes were on Zora now, standing in the middle of the aisle, her folder clutched to her chest, blocking Venus's path to the altar. Your bride, Zora said, her voice growing stronger, is already married. Her real name is Vanessa Chambers, and she's wanted in 3 states for fraud. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's smile disappeared completely, replaced by a cold, calculating look that sent chills down Zora's spine. The ballroom fell silent as Zora opened her folder. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice remained steady. I have proof, she announced, pulling out the first document. This is a marriage certificate from California, dated just 18 months ago. Vanessa Chambers married Robert Chen in San Diego. They never divorced. She held up the paper for everyone to see. The official seal was clearly visible, even from a distance. Vanessa's face hardened. This is ridiculous. My name is Vanessa Preston, not Chambers. This girl is clearly disturbed. Marcus looked between his daughter and his bride, confusion written across his face. Zora, what are you doing? Saving you, Dad. Zora pulled out more papers. These are police reports from Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia, all for the same woman, using different names. Vanessa Chambers, Vanessa Johnson, Vanessa Baker. She spread the documents on a nearby table, inviting people to look. Several guests, including Marcus's business partner, stepped forward out of curiosity. She marries wealthy men, combines bank accounts, then disappears with their money, Zora continued. There are at least 4 victims that I found. Vanessa laughed, but it sounded forced. This is absurd. Marcus, are you going to let your jealous daughter ruin our special day with these lies? Marcus hesitated, caught between loyalty to his daughter and the woman he thought he loved. Aunt Denise stepped forward. Marcus, look at the pictures. Zora handed her father a series of newspaper clippings and printouts. Each showed Vanessa with different hair and makeup, but the same distinctive smile. This is from a fraud case in Miami, Zora explained, pointing to one photo. And this one is from a warning posted by a private investigator in Nashville. This woman has been running the same scam for years. The wedding planner, a thin woman with glasses, peered over Marcus's shoulder at the photos. Oh my, she whispered. Venus's calm facade began to crack. These could be anyone. You can't prove this is me. From the back of the room, a man Zora didn't recognize spoke up. Actually, I can confirm it's you, Vanessa. He was older, well-dressed, and looked deeply uncomfortable. I'm Robert Chen's cousin. When I saw your engagement announcement in the business section, I recognized you immediately. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Vanessa's eyes darted toward the exit. That's not all, Zora continued. She pulled out a printout of a wanted notice. There's a warrant for your arrest in Florida for grand theft. You stole over $200,000 from a retired doctor named James Wilson. Marcus stared at the documents, the color draining from his face. Is this true? He asked Vanessa quietly. Instead of answering, Vanessa suddenly pointed at Zora. She's trying to sabotage us. She never wanted you to be happy after the divorce. But her words rang hollow as more guests gathered around the evidence. One woman, who had been introduced as Venus's college friend, slipped quietly toward the door. A heavy-set man in the 3rd row stood up. I'm a retired detective. May I see those documents? Zora handed them over, watching as he examined each one carefully. The room waited in tense silence. These appeared genuine, he finally announced. The arrest warrant is current, and this marriage certificate has the proper seals. Venus's composure finally broke. This is all a misunderstanding, she said, backing away from Marcus. I can explain everything, darling. Just not here, not like this. She reached for her small clutch purse, which had been placed on a decorative table. As she did, a man wearing a waiter's uniform, whom Zora had noticed hovering near the gift table, suddenly made a dash for the side exit, several envelopes stuffed in his pocket. Stop him, called the wedding planner. He's taking the gift cards. In the resulting confusion, Vanessa turned to flee toward the main doors. but her path was blocked by the wedding planner, who stood firmly in the doorway, cell phone in hand. "The police are already on their way," she said quietly. "I called them as soon as I saw those documents." Chaos erupted in the Grand Peachtree Hotel ballroom. The man in the waiter's uniform, who had been grabbing gift envelopes, was tackled by two of Marcus's friends near the side exit. Gift cards and cash scattered across the floor as they struggled. "He's with her," someone shouted. "That's not a real waiter." Vanessa remained frozen by the main doors, blocked by the wedding planner who refused to move. Her perfect image had crumbled. The confident, charming woman who had won over Marcus Williams was gone, replaced by someone with cold, calculating eyes darting around the room for escape routes. "Let me through," Vanessa demanded, her voice no longer sweet. "This is all a mistake that I can explain later." The wedding planner stood firm. "The police will be here any minute. If there's been a mistake, you can explain it to them." Marcus watched this scene unfold as if in a nightmare. The beautiful woman in the white dress, the woman he had been about to promise his life to, was a stranger, a criminal. His mind struggled to process how completely he had been fooled. Zora approached her father cautiously. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I tried to tell you." Before Marcus could respond, the ballroom doors opened. Two uniformed police officers entered, followed by a man and woman in plain clothes who showed badges. "Vanessa Chambers?" called the female detective, walking straight toward the bride. "I'm Detective Rivera with Atlanta Police. We need to speak with you." Vanessa's face hardened as she realized there was no escape. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right," Detective Rivera said calmly, taking Vanessa by the arm. "But first, we need to confirm your identity." The male detective approached Zora. "Are you the one who called this in?" Zora shook her head. "No, but I brought the evidence." She handed him her folder. "Everything I found is in here." The detective flipped through the papers quickly, his eyebrows rising. "This is good work. Where did you get all this?" "Public records mostly, and some online research." Zora glanced at her father, who stood alone near the altar, looking lost. "I tried to tell my dad before the wedding, but he wouldn't listen." Across the room, the police officers had handcuffed the fake waiter, who was yelling about his rights being violated. "That's Tony," Vanessa said suddenly. "He's my cousin. He has nothing to do with this." Detective Rivera looked skeptical. "Your cousin? According to our records, you don't have any cousins, Ms. Chambers." The guests watched in stunned silence as the officers read Vanessa her rights. The perfect white wedding had turned into a crime scene. Photographers who had been hired to capture the happy day were now discreetly taking pictures of the bride in handcuffs. The retired detective who had examined Zora's documents approached the police. "I can confirm the woman has been using different identities. I recognized her from a case bulletin when I was still on the force in Tennessee." As Vanessa was led toward the door, she turned to look at Marcus one last time. "It could have been real between us," she said, her voice almost sad. "You should have just let me go when I was ready." Marcus didn't respond. He couldn't find any words. Detective Rivera paused beside Zora on her way out. "We've been looking for Ms. Chambers for quite some time. You may have saved your father from losing everything." The guests began to disperse, whispering among themselves. The string quartet packed up their instruments without having played the wedding march to completion. Hotel staff hovered uncertainly, not sure if they should begin cleaning up or wait for further instructions. Aunt Denise approached Marcus and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Come on, brother. Let's get you out of here." Marcus nodded numbly, then looked around until he found Zora standing alone near the evidence table. "Zora," he called softly. She turned, unsure what to expect: anger, embarrassment, blame. But as their eyes met across the ruined wedding decorations, all she saw in her father's face was gratitude and shame. "Thank you," he said simply. "You were right all along." The Grand Peachtree Hotel ballroom stood nearly empty now. White rose petals were scattered across the floor, and half-empty champagne glasses sat abandoned on tables. Most of the guests had left quickly after the police took Vanessa and her accomplice away, eager to distance themselves from the scandal. Marcus Williams sat alone in the front row, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. The wedding cake, a beautiful 5-tier creation, remained uncut on its display table. He stared at nothing, trying to make sense of how his life had fallen apart so completely in less than an hour. Zora watched her father from across the room, unsure if she should approach. She had been right about Vanessa, but that didn't erase the pain she had caused him today. Part of her wanted to leave quietly, to give him space to process everything. But she couldn't abandon him like this. He hasn't moved for 20 minutes, Aunt Denise said, joining Zora by the door. Someone should talk to him. He probably doesn't want to see me right now, Zora replied softly. Aunt Denise squeezed her niece's shoulder. You did the right thing, honey. It would have been far worse if you'd said nothing, and he'd found out later, after she'd taken everything. The wedding planner approached them, looking tired but professional. The hotel manager has offered Mr. Williams a private room if he'd like to rest before leaving, and they won't charge for the cancelled reception. Thank you, Aunt Denise said. I'll let him know. As Aunt Denise walked away, Detective Rivera returned to the ballroom. She had left earlier with Vanessa, but had promised to come back with more information. Miss Williams, she called to Zora. Do you have a moment? Zora nodded, following the detective to a quiet corner. I wanted to update you on the situation, Detective Rivera said. We've confirmed your findings. Vanessa Chambers has outstanding warrants in 3 states. She's been running variations of this scam for at least 6 years. What happens now? Zora asked. She'll face multiple charges here in Georgia, and then likely be extradited to Florida where the largest theft occurred. The detective looked impressed. Your research was remarkably thorough. How did you first become suspicious? Zora explained about finding the newspaper clipping at her mother's house and the strange feeling that had led her to dig deeper. Well, your instincts were spot on, Detective Rivera said. We've already contacted her previous victims. One man lost his house and retirement savings to her. Across the room, Marcus finally stood up. He looked older somehow, his shoulders slumped as he walked slowly toward Zora and the detective. Dad, Zora said quietly as he approached. Marcus didn't speak immediately. He looked at Detective Rivera first. Will I need to make a statement? Yes, sir, but it can wait until tomorrow if you prefer. Marcus nodded. Tomorrow would be better. The detective excused herself, leaving father and daughter alone for the first time since the disastrous ceremony. The silence between them felt heavy. Zora waited, afraid to speak first. I should have listened to you, Marcus finally said, his voice rough with emotion. When you came to my office yesterday, when you called, I should have listened. Tears filled Zora's eyes. I'm sorry it happened this way. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't hurt me, she did. Marcus shook his head slowly. I was a fool. I wanted to believe she loved me so badly that I ignored every warning sign. She was very convincing. Zora offered. That's how she's gotten away with it for so long. Marcus looked around at the ruined wedding decorations. Do you know what the worst part is? I combined our bank accounts last week. She insisted we needed to do it before the wedding to pay the vendors. His voice broke. She would have been gone with everything by Monday. Zora reached for her father's hand hesitantly. When he didn't pull away, she held it tight. It's going to be okay, Dad. For the first time that day, Marcus looked directly into his daughter's eyes. How did I push you so far away that you had to crash my wedding to talk to me? The question hung in the air between them, the beginning of a conversation 3 years overdue. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Zora sat at a small table in Giovanni's, her father's favorite Italian restaurant. Outside, autumn leaves swirled in the October wind. Inside, the warm scent of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air as waiters moved between tables. Zora checked her watch. Her father was running late, unusual for a man who prided himself on punctuality. Before she could text him, Marcus hurried through the door, apologizing to the host as he was led to their table. Sorry I'm late, he said, settling into his chair across from Zora. The meeting with the bank ran longer than expected. Everything okay? Zora asked, concern in her voice. Marcus smiled, the tired lines around his eyes softening. Better than okay. They've recovered almost 80% of the money Vanessa transferred out of my accounts. The rest should come after her trial concludes next month. That's great news, Dad. Zora reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Their waiter appeared with menus, but they waved him away. After 24 weekly dinners in the same restaurant, they knew exactly what they wanted. The usual, Marcus told the waiter with a smile. spaghetti carbonara for me, eggplant parmesan for my daughter, and a house salad to share. As the waiter left, Zora sipped her water and studied her father. He looked healthier now. The hollow look in his eyes that had haunted him for months after Vanessa's arrest was finally gone. I saw Mom yesterday, Zora said casually. She mentioned you called her about the old photo albums. Marcus nodded. I found some pictures from your high school graduation while cleaning out the spare room. Thought she might want copies. That was nice of you. Zora smiled, remembering how impossible such a civil exchange between her parents would have seemed a year ago. Their salad arrived, and they fell into comfortable conversation about Zora's final year of college and her plans after graduation. The easy rhythm of their talk was something both had once thought lost forever. Oh, I almost forgot, Marcus said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Detective Rivera called this morning. They've identified another victim of Vanessa's in California. The man is flying in to testify at the trial. Zora nodded. The case against Vanessa Chambers had grown stronger with each passing month as more victims came forward after seeing news reports about the dramatic wedding intervention. What had started as charges of identity theft and fraud had expanded to include money laundering and tax evasion. Have you heard from Aunt Denise? Zora asked, changing the subject. Talk of Vanessa still brought a shadow to her father's face. Marcus brightened. She and Uncle Paul are hosting Thanksgiving this year. The whole family will be there. He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. I asked if I could bring someone. Zora raised her eyebrows. Someone? Linda from my office. The accountant I mentioned last week. Marcus adjusted his napkin nervously. We've had coffee a few times. Nothing serious. Dad, that's wonderful, Zora said, genuinely pleased. Is she nice? Very, and honest. Marcus smiled wryly. I checked her background thoroughly, of course. They both laughed, the painful memory now something they could almost joke about. Their main courses arrived, and they ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Around them, other families and couples enjoyed their meals, unaware of the journey that had brought this father and daughter back to each other. You know, Marcus said finally, setting down his fork, I never properly thanked you. For what? For saving me. Not just from Vanessa, but from myself. He looked into his daughter's eyes. I was so lost after the divorce, so determined to prove I could be happy without your mother, that I couldn't see what was happening. You were braver than I was. Zora felt tears form in her eyes. I was just afraid of losing you. You never will again, Marcus promised, reaching for her hand. Not ever. Outside, the wind continued to blow, scattering old leaves to make way for new growth. Inside, father and daughter held hands across the table, the broken relationship finally healed, an unexpected gift from the wedding day that had fallen apart in exactly the right way.